Another guy who was supporting cast questions, number 4, Drew Allar from Penn State. Again, like Kevin Jennings, his final game of the year was not pretty. He had a 36.6 passing grade against Notre Dame in the college football playoff semifinals, but still, he led Penn State to the college football playoff semifinals this past year. He was the 6th most valuable quarterback in the country, according to PFF's wins above average metric. 21 big-time throws. It was top 20 in America. 2.1% turnover-worthy play rate was 21st in the country. So did a really good job of making those NFL throws down the field, but also not putting the ball in harm's way, something he did an elite job at the year before as well. Still a lot to clean up, right? His footwork, his accuracy is still not the best right now for Drew Allar. Penn State did improve its wide receiver room this offseason. In fact, the entire starting 3 receivers should all be transfers. And Trevor Pena coming in from Syracuse, Kyron Hudson coming in from USC, and Devontae Ross coming in from Troy. But you lose Tyler Warren, who just went 14th overall to the Indianapolis Colts, was arguably the best tight end in college football this past year. That is a major loss because he really bailed out Penn State's offense in a lot of ways last year. So receiving core in terms of the receivers got better. Tight ends definitely got worse, losing Tyler Warren, but there's still some really talented tight ends in Penn State behind him. We'll see how that goes next year. But I think, with a loaded roster outside of that, returning around him and the defense and the offensive line returns a lot of pieces as well. And like I said, the receiving core did, I think, get better. I think Penn State has a potential to take even a deeper run next year, maybe even all the way to the national championship game.
Yeah, I think the first thing is, do we think they might be the favorite to win the Big Ten? We can get into that later as we get into the Penn State preview. But I'll be honest with you, I think Drew Allar might be the quarterback on this list that I have the hardest time with. I have the hardest time with placing because we know all of the things Penn State has. A really good defense, 2 really good backs. Andy Kotelnicki, one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. And Allar, when he throws the ball with conviction, oh boy, it's nice, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, you just talk about a guy with an absolute rifles, got that thick-legged kind of Andrew Luck build. He's not as athletic as Andrew Luck, but I think to me he throws the football kind of in a similar way, and he's got an absolute cannon, especially when you're talking about throwing down the middle of the defense. Nobody in the country, Max, had more completions, yards, and touchdowns on seam routes than Drew Allar did last year, and it wasn't particularly close. This is what they do, is they get down the middle of the field. That's where he excels, is those balls right in front of him between the hashes. The questions are, you mentioned it, the 3 new receivers now, throwing through man coverage. You mentioned that Notre Dame game. That was the problem. The receivers just locked down in man coverage, and Drew had to force throws into tight coverage, and it wasn't pretty. And then throwing more outside the numbers, expanding the width of the field, because I think that's where his footwork gets to him, especially that front foot that sometimes can be a little bit inconsistent when it comes to his motion, his delivery, his accuracy, throwing to the outer parts of the field, right? So if Penn State, I know they're losing Warren, but if they can expand their offense to where now they're going sideline to sideline and not just down the seams, you've got a whole different passing game and a whole different conversation with Drew Allar. But that's going to be the big key, is those 3 receivers they brought in. I know you're super excited about Trevor Pena coming in from Syracuse, but Allar's got to find the chemistry with those guys, and then they've got to expand the field a little bit more than just right down the hash marks.
I will say, I think those stats you just said right there, but throwing down the seams, it's a lot to do with Tyler Warren, and not throwing well outside the numbers, a lot to do with the horrible receiving core for Penn State last year. So I think we'll see what happens this year for Penn State without Tyler Warren and with arguably better wide receivers this year. But he is a hard guy to place right now. And Drake Holiday even saying in the chat he's kind of out on Drew Allar right now. Walt even saying, I don't know about Drew Allar right now either. He's a hard guy to place right now, but we'll see what he could do next year with probably a better receiving core overall.
One thing we do know, and he has to be credited for this despite all the tight coverage he sees and despite all the pressure that he's under to perform, is he does not give the football away.
No.
2 years ago, 1.1% turnover-worthy play rate. Last year, 2.1%, which is still top 20 in the country. He doesn't beat himself. What beats Drew Allar is just throwing into those tight windows, in part because the receivers couldn't get open. And 2, I still think his ball placement is definitely not elite, and he doesn't always throw the ball with 100% conviction. There's times it looks like, because he's got such a big arm, that he's trying to place it. I think that's the 2 things for me. It's just a little bit of footwork. It's not as drastic as a DJ Lagway or something like that, but the accuracy, the ball placement, and then just, again, those guys on the outside separating and giving him a little bit of help. But he does not give the football away. I know the Notre Dame game at the end, he had the interception at the end. That's not a common thing for Allar, okay? No. He spent all year not turning the ball over, and then, look, that game, you saw the best man coverage team in the country. It was as bad a matchup as you could get for Penn State's offense. So, if nothing else, there is a very high floor with Allar here, and that's why he deserves to still be in the top 5.
It's funny because he's not usually guys who are not very accurate. Like Drew Allar has some issues with accuracy at times. Usually, put the ball in harm's way a lot. It's almost like Drew's like, okay, it's either on target or it's nobody's catching the football either. So I think that's the one thing you say about Drew Allar as well. Again, physically talented, could be the number 1 overall pick in the draft if he develops even more in terms of his footwork and accuracy this upcoming year. But we'll see with Drew Allar. And listen, Penn State right now, a lot of people saying are the best team in the country. I, as a Penn State lifer, will not say that. I think they are top 5 team in the country right now. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.